Well, hey there. So Tammy's not here. Usually Tammy and I hang out together. So it's Scott and I, which I love Scott. So if you haven't got a chance to hang out with Scott, he's amazing. What we normally do is people ask us questions and then Tammy will read them and then I will answer them. So if any of you out there have questions for us, that would be fantastic. And if not, then we will just talk about things, like lots of things. Um, Today I was driving to work and there was a guy behind me who I recognized and he was crying. Um, and I had just found out yesterday because of somebody in my office that he had uh, been displaced at work. They were hiring somebody new and uh, didn't really give him notice. And he had just gone through a divorce. And I could see that he was crying. And I so wanted to just like get out of the car and pull him out and give him a hug, which wasn't safe. I didn't have his contact information, so I texted somebody who did, and I'm like, "Hey, buddy, I'm like right in front of you. Could you use a hug?" Um, and my heart was just hurting. And he was going through a lot. He had worked for the company for nearly 20 years, so the wound of betrayal was being hit, the wound of loss, the loss of his marriage, the loss of things that were going on. And um, so I was watching the wounds in action being hit, and it can affect us in really different ways. So if you're not familiar with the wounds, and anybody, if you do have questions, we would love them, but I'll pull them up. If you're not familiar with the wounds, there are 6 of them: loss, neglect, rejection, abandonment, betrayal, and abuse. They're, we're wired for connection as humans, biologically, neurologically, socially, sexually, energetically. We're wired to be connected and have connections with other people. And then when things happen, like what happened to my friend, that that those can either create wounds or they can reopen wounds that we've already had. A lot of times these wounds happen when we were growing up.
Yeah.
And so when they get bumped, oh man, it hurts. It's just like having somebody bump up against you when you have a sunburn. There's a sting, there's a visceral reaction, and it hurts. So, um,
So Troy, let's talk about addicts for a second because I'm an
sure.
addict. I'm an addict. Um, most of us don't realize that we're wounded when and we're adults and we've got this addiction thing and we don't even realize we're wounded. And I remember for me what a shock it was to realize, my not necessarily perfect childhood, but my, childhood that I had thought was fine, um, was actually a big giant mess.
Mm.
You know, when you see that with people, and I was resistant. I was like, no, nobody ever hit me because nobody ever hit me. Um, nobody ever actually touched my little parts, because nobody did, or not that I
Yeah.
consciously remember. But there was emotional abuse. There was a lot of emotional neglect. There was covert incest. There was, and it was a shock, and I was resistant. How do you handle people in that early stage when they're sort of pushing back, like, no?
Mm.
Or do you not get people then? You get them only after they recognize they've been wounded.
No, I mean, so there's a couple things that come. I was working with a couple yesterday. He's not an addict, but I was working with a couple yesterday, and they had had a um, like an argument over the weekend, um, and so as I started to dive a little deeper, I'm like, okay, buddy, so what wounds was this minor conversation hitting for you? And he's like, none. And I'm like, okay, look at the chart. And then he started to recognize the wound was neglect for him, and that his parents would, I guess his brother had a lot of issues, and so they would spend a lot of time with the other brother and kind of ignore him. And so that same pattern was happening in that night, or that situation with his wife. Like, he was feeling ignored. And then I turned to her and said, well, what wounds get up for you? And she's like, and she sat with a minute for a minute, and she goes like, oh, the the wound of neglect and rejection. When my parents got divorced when I was little, and I learned how to be a people pleaser. And so I was always trying to make everyone happy. And that was exactly what was happening in here. She was trying to make her parents happy, her friends happy, and her husband happy. And she was pulled, and she wasn't able to pull it off. And so them being able to name that was like, oh, right. And initially, they didn't feel like they had it. When I was early, I had some sobriety. I actually had quite few years of sobriety under my belt, which I thought was the ticket to life
Everything
being
will
better.
everything
Yeah,
will be perfect now because I'm sober.
right. I mean, yeah, I was so angry, and my wife at the time, um, she was serving in a position, a women's position, where she was gone a lot, helping other women. She was making dinners for them. She was going out and visiting them like every night. And I had two kids at home. I was so mad. I was angry, and I was not fun to live with. And I was like, I thought that being sober was going to fix all this. And yet, what it really did is I had stopped my one and only numbing tool, um, and had not learned anything else. And so it was around that time that I stumbled on these wounds, and I like, oh, I have a I have a rejection wound, and I have an abandonment wound, and they are huge.
Right.
And that's what's happening. She's leaving every night after I come home from work, and that's what's happening. And so I was able to name that, and it's like, oh, I got to do that. So when a new person comes in, and a person who's just early in recovery, um, the beauty about it is I have these signs on my wall, and I'm like, okay, so what wounds do you have? And they can do a little bit pushback, but what's really nice is this isn't about blame. So I'm not here to say, like, tell me how shitty your parents were. Like, tell me like what a crappy childhood you had and who did it to you. It's really like, okay, but growing up, did any of this happen to you at school, at home, with a neighbor down the street, like any of that? And that, I think, gives people some space to say, oh yeah, I have that, without feeling like they have to throw their family under the bus.
So eh, I've got like three questions I want to answer. I
Sure.
want to ask. And so you mentioned people pleasing. And this has been the topic of the week with people I'm talking to is people pleasing. And I always say, as addicts, we feel, I mean, these wounds create shame or a sense of I'm not good enough. It's why we turn to a substance or a behavior instead of other people who might show some empathy and hold
Yeah.
our hand and tell us that, give us a hug like you wanted to do with that gentleman earlier today. By the way, type questions into the Q&A. I can ask a whole hour's worth of questions, believe me. But um, but this is for you, not me. Um, so, and one of our coping mechanisms when we feel shame, we lie and keep secrets. We never show people the real us to the point where we lose track of who we are. And, but we have this desire and need to feel connection, even if it's, I'm going to put on a mask and people please. I'm going to say what I think you want me to say. I'm going to do what I think you want me to do. I'm going to be the person I think you want me to be. I'm going to put that mask on to keep you in my life, to get you in my life and keep you in my life. Um, And I might have a mask for you, and I might have a mask for my partner, and I might have a mask for, you know, work. And, I've got a collection of masks, and nobody ever sees the real me. And what happens with this people pleasing, it's a form of manipulation, number one, which is not
Mm,
nice.
right.
Um, I'm manipulating you into being part of my life, into treating me, nicely. Um,
Yeah.
but nobody ever knows the real me. They're validating my mask and not me. So I still feel empty inside. I still feel all of my attachment wounds because I'm not getting validated. My
Right.
masks are. Um, I mean, how do you coach people through people pleasing and this need to be liked by everyone and all that stuff, which we all have to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Um,
So one of the concepts that I teach people about are called the shadows of shame. I gotta go find them. Where are they? There we are. Okay. Um, the two that you're talking about are the politician and the martyr. Right. So each one of these, so shame is really big. It's a really big emotion. It's a really big thought process. It's like a complicated thing. But the basic definition of shame is that it means that I believe that I am unworthy of love and belonging, because there's something wrong with me. I'm flawed and defective in some way or lots of ways, and that makes me unworthy of love and belonging. But shame in and of itself can be really daunting to face. And so one of the things that I learned to do was to break shame down into different archetypes or different characters per se. And the two we're talking about is the politician. And the politician, just like a real politician, is really worried about people voting for them, wants people to like them. So politician, in order to keep in office, needs people to keep voting for them. And so the politician shadow will encourage us to put on masks, to lie, to pretend, to hide, so that nobody will see the real us. Because the politician believes that if anybody actually sees the real me, they won't like you, they won't like me, and they won't vote for me, and they will reject me, and they will leave me. And so we better not let anybody know. In addict world, the politician's like, don't tell anybody, don't tell your spouse, don't tell your friends that you relapsed, because they will not like you. And so we put on the mask and we lie in order to prevent ourselves from further hurt, which, as you already mentioned, doesn't work, because now I'm fake. And
yeah,
so you like the fake me, and I know that that's not real. And so that sets some problems up. The martyr tells you that your needs don't matter, and uh, everyone else's needs matter more than yours. And so, in order to survive in this world, you need to sacrifice yourself. Don't be selfish, and you need to make sure that everyone else's needs are met, that everyone else is happy. And then if everyone else is happy, then they won't really pay attention. That what they'll do is they'll look at you and they'll think, oh, you're such a nice guy. Oh, you care so much for everybody. And they won't really notice your flaws and defects. They won't see them, and they'll just think, oh, he's so great. And they'll just feel sorry for you, really, is what they'll do. And
yeah,
we don't. And so that martyr really tells us to throw ourselves under the bus and people please everyone else. And the challenge with that is then we're not taking care of ourselves, and um, we're empty and
yeah,
depleted.
yeah. And with both the politician and the martyr, not only does nobody else get to see who we are, we don't either. And I
Oh,
mean, addicts all the time, they'll just look at me and say, I've taken my medicine away. So now I have to feel, and I don't know how to feel, and I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need. I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
Um, is it just the politician and the martyr that do that to us, or is it all the shadows?
All of the shadows have different roles. So the judge is sorry, I spilled some water.
Oh, okay.
The, the judge the judge tells us that we're not enough. It's like the inner critic. A lot of people are familiar with that. Judge says you're flawed and defective. There's something wrong with you. You're not trying hard enough. Why are you not doing that? You need to be doing more of this. Can't believe you did that, you idiot. The royal, which a lot of people have a hard time accepting they have, um, is kind of the opposite of the judge and tells you that you're better than everybody else and you're entitled to special privileges, and can't everybody see how amazing you are and what you're doing, and therefore they should treat you differently than everybody else and they should elevate you differently than everybody else.
So
And what the
oh, go ahead. I got a question about that, about the royal. So, but
sure.
finish, and then I'll ask my question on the royal.
Yeah, so a lot of people think, well, how's that shame? Well, the royal shames everybody else while trying to elevate you. So the royals points out everyone else's flaws and defects in order to try and make you feel better.
Yeah. And so my question is, having been raised by a royal, um, eh, um, it looks like narcissism a lot of the time. Um, I always think there's clinical narcissism where people truly believe I'm right, everybody else is wrong. I've never done a wrong thing in my life. You should all, they're just, they are the center of the universe. And then there's this shame narcissism, which to me is a defense mechanism.
Mhm.
I feel so bad about myself that I'm going to drag everybody. It's almost like a bully. I'm going to make you feel as bad as I feel. Is that how you see the royal, or am I off base?
Yeah, so the one of the concepts of the shadows is that they're not actually you, right? And that's really important because it helps me then be able to develop resilience to them. If I think they're all me, I'm screwed, right? But I can't. What can I do? But if I can understand they're not me, um, they're messages that have been built in
Right.
to protect me. I can develop resilience. So when the royal is showing up, though, the behaviors that if I buy into what the royal is saying, I will engage in narcissistic behaviors. It will make it all about me. And I will not have empathy for you. And I will think that I'm better than everybody else. And whether it's class like diagnostically significant narcissistic personality disorder or whether it's you're just acting like an a-hole, both of those have trauma underneath them. Like the whole reason why the shadow is there is because it's trying to deal with your pain. And the irony is, like when we're wounded, like when you're in the hospital, you don't feel good, that you have lots of people paying attention to you, right? You have visitors coming in, the nurse is checking on you, the CA is coming in there, all that stuff. Like there's a lot of attention that gets put on you. Maybe you don't want to be there, but there's a lot, and that might feel really intoxicating, especially for someone who's listening to the royal. It's like, okay, I'm gonna fixate on my pain so the all will pay attention to me, which as a person who's around that gets old. I don't want to hang out with you. But that's part of that challenge with the royal.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah,
Um, Impotent One and Rebel, and then we'll jump into the questions that have come
sure.
in. Troy is still cleaning up his water mess on the floor there.
Luckily, it's on glass and not carpet, so we're good. I'm just making sure it's not dripping off the thing. Uh, so impotent one, it tells you that you're powerless. Think about Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Nothing you do ever matters.
Oh,
No matter how hard you try, it's just not going to work out. You're going to fail anyway. So this defeatist energy, just it really convinces us to just give up and don't even put ourselves out there because it's probably not going to work out anyway. And then the rebel is the opposite of that energy. It's like, well, screw that. You can do whatever you want. Nobody can tell you what you can and can't not do. Rules don't apply to you. Who cares if it causes harm? Who cares if it rips your family apart? Who cares if it's illegal? If you want to do it, you do it. And screw the world. So that energy, a lot of times our addict behavior are tied to the royal and the rebel. They come together. Oh, you've had a hard day. You really deserve to 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 take care of yourself. And yeah, and screw, who cares? I have had 90 days of sobriety. Who
Yeah,
cares about that?
yeah, yeah. I see all of these in addicts, but yeah, Royal and Rebel are like, at the effort moment, they seem to be in charge.
Yeah,
Um, so thank you, because that's some people may be new here,
yeah,
and it's been a long time since I've heard that. But let's jump into the questions here.
sure.
Um, how does an addict see their masks if they are functioning under shame and behaviors? So how can an addict identify I've got a mask on?
Yeah. So one of the things that's helpful is that we give them names, right?
Yeah,
So if I can help you, and a lot of times people recognize the judge right away. Whether you're an addict or not, most people can recognize that and say, okay, so if you were just notice that energy, and if that judge walked into the room, what would it look like and what would it sound like? And so when we use words like this and we give it language, it makes it a whole lot easier for people to see it. Now, they may not see it in the moment yet. A lot of times when people first are introduced to the shadows, they can pick up on it, but they don't recognize when it's happening. But they get better at it. So the way we do that is we take a scenario and say, okay, so who showed up during that time? What did they say? And as they practice, they're like, oh, and so if you hang out with me for longer than 10 minutes, you'll probably hear me say something like, oh, my judge just showed up. Oh, my impotent one saying this. And I've learned how to recognize it pretty quickly now. But at the beginning, it's new, but you practice.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I know the little horrible people who live in me. I have a politician, I have a martyr, and I have a rebel. Um, I have the other ones as well, but the politician, the martyr, and the rebel are really chatty and really loud.
Yes.
And but it's 20 plus years of recovery here, um, to recognize, and you can call these shadows of shame, you can call them masks, you can call them character defects, you can call them whatever you want,
Yeah.
and shame tapes, all this stuff. But I love these names because people can, like, oh, that's my politician. That's why I'm lying and keeping secrets.
Yeah.
That's my martyr. That's why I said yes when I mean no. You
Mm.
know, my
Yeah.
rebel has kicked in, and I'm like, screw you, people. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do my thing. Um, and being able to identify that, it takes practice. Um, it it helps to have a therapist like Troy who knows how to get people to identify their wounds and the shadows, and
Mhm.
but it takes practice,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, in my marriage with a sex addict who is in recovery, how do I heal from repeated betrayals? My partner will be sober for a year and then relapse. I've discovered the relapses with porn rather than him disclosing it. Um, I've asked for honesty when he relapses within 24 hours. I consider it a betrayal when he lies by omission. He promised to disclose right away again.
Well, it is betrayal when he lies, right? So that's
Yeah.
part of how that wound gets created, is that somebody's lying to you, cheating on you, stealing from you, those kind of things. So I want to honor that. The challenge is, there's a couple things you're asking. Um, how do you heal
Right.
from repeated betrayal? And it's like, how do you heal when you keep being stabbed with a fork or a knife, right? How do you heal? And so there are ways to heal that are apart from his behavior, and that's something I hope maybe you have a therapist and you can work through. But to answer this question concisely, like, you you can't continue to heal when you keep continuing to be stabbed, right? So you've asked for what you wanted, you've asked for the 24-hour disclosure, which is pretty standard, and he doesn't. So that's a double betrayal. Number one, he slipped and he didn't tell you, and then you find out later because he didn't tell you. So that is hurtful on all sides. So it's really hard to heal from that betrayal when it happens over and over again. So part of that is what do you end up believing about yourself? What does it say about you, or at least what do you feel it says about you when he keeps doing that? And if it's, well, I don't matter, I'm not important, those kind of things, that's where the work would be, where you would challenge that. I do matter, and I am worthy of having a relationship where my partner tells the truth. I'm worthy of having a relationship where my partner honors his commitments. And if you're able to step into that energy and you feel that light that comes from that, what does that then prompt you to want to do? Um, and I'm not saying you should leave or stay. I'm because it's different for every person and different for every circumstance. But it's what does that truth inspire you to want to do for you? Because it's we can't control him, but I'm worthy of having a partner who tells me the truth. I'm worthy of having a partner who honors their commitments. I don't have a partner who's doing that. So what does that inspire me to do? What do I want to do with that? And that's where the healing happens, as you start to care for your wounds, regardless of what your partner does.
Um, I love this question. Quite a while ago, when the internet was really just taking root and sexual behaviors and romantic behaviors, people were acting out. Dr. Rob did some research with a couple other therapists, and they wanted to know the crux of the research was, is online cheating as bad or different or not as bad as in-person cheating? And the primary finding was it is. It hurts the same either way. The secondary and probably more important finding was the reason for that, which is it's less about what you do and more about the lies and secrets.
Mhm,
With intimate betrayal, what hurts most is the loss of relationship trust. You know,
mhm,
your partner is the one person on earth who you are choosing to trust. And this person just stabbed you in the back and twisted the knife. Um, that's harder to recover from than, oh, I had a lap dance. Sorry about that. It won't happen again. Um, the lies and secrets. If you're lying to me about this, what else are you lying to me about? Um, and here you are in a situation, Troy, as Troy said, how can you heal when you're still getting stabbed? How can you heal when he's still sticking the knife in once a year? Um, and it sounds like for you, the real pain is, you know, the lies and secrets. And secrets are just really quiet lies. That's how I describe them. But, you know, they're still lies. It's something that you should be told, and you're not getting the truth. Um, and Troy's right. You know this. How can how are you going to feel safe in your relationship when he says, what does this cause you to want to do? I want to feel safe in my relationship. That's what boundaries are all about. When you slip with porn and don't tell me, it causes me to question everything all over again. It hits my attachment wounds, you know, PTSD kind of feelings. It feels like it's happening all over again, you know, and there's nothing wrong with choosing to stay with someone you love.
mhm,
Um, and anybody who tells you there is something wrong with that, please talk to somebody else. And there's nothing wrong with loving someone who has a problem. Um, but healthy boundaries, are one of the ways that you can feel safer. Okay, if this happens again, you're going to have to move out, or we're going to have a therapeutic separation, or um, we're going to put blockers on your phone, or whatever it is. Um, I don't know. I'm sort of rambling. Try to
Well,
help.
that's what when you connect with that truth, what does that guide you to do? Does that guide you to increase your boundaries around certain things, or implement some things? Does that guide you to ask for a separation? Does that guide you to say you do you, but well, I'm not doing this? Like, what does that guide you to do, and
Yeah,
honor
yeah,
that for yourself? That's really what I'm suggesting, and hopefully you have a therapist who understands this, or a support. And we have lots of drop-in groups for betrayed partners that you can get some support for you, because I just want to honor that it hurts and it's painful, and I hear your pain, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad for him too, that um he still is stuck in his shame so much that he can't be honest.
yeah, and that's exactly it with the addicts. I teach our online work groups, or a lot of them, and I run the online work group programming. Troy teaches a healing attachment one work group if anybody's interested. But also do an alumni meeting once a week for work group alumni. And the guys, when they come in after they've had some conflict with their partner, um, 9 times out of 10, it's not about they relapsed. It's about they got caught in a lie. I mean, 9 times out of 10, that's where the conflict is coming from. Um, and, if you're an addict, your partners want to know the truth. They deserve to know the truth. And if you're not telling them the truth, you are punching an attachment wound. You know, yeah, you're not punching your own attachment wound, but you're punching theirs. And do you really want to do that? Because sometimes in protecting ourselves as addicts, we're not protecting others. We're hurting others.
Yeah,
Um, and we have to think about that. So,
yeah.
um, can you give an example of attachment wounds of sex addicts and narcissistic traits?
So narcissism is, well, the name comes from the Greek story where Narcissus fell in love with his image, and would look and gaze into his reflection, and his whole life fell apart because he just was absorbed with looking at himself and how amazing he was. So that is that's where it comes from. So that idea that I'm amazing and I don't do anything wrong, and you all are stupid, and how come you don't understand like what an amazing human I am? And so that leads to egocentric behaviors, arrogance, manipulation, lying, all those kind of things, where I'm doing that to try and manipulate you without taking any ownership of my own behaviors. I'm not going to admit my faults. I'm not going to admit that I have defects. And if I do admit them, it's not because I'm being sincere. It's a manipulation usually. So um, you can probably see an overlap with a lot of that with people who are struggling with addiction. They lie. Uh, it looks like it's very selfish when um, I'm like, so a mom is gone, getting high, and left the kids home alone, and they're not being cared for and all that, and the mom or the dad, whoever, is out there doing stuff to take care of themselves and forget about everybody else. So that those things overlap, right? So I in that moment when the addict behavior is showing up, there isn't really concern for anybody else. It's really, I'm just trying to take care of myself. Afterwards, shame shows up. And even then, narcissism shows up, because it will sound like, well, I'm just a horrible human. you should probably just divorce me already. Like, I'm no good for you. And I, and I, and I, and I, and I, and I. So there's the overlap of that until we start to recognize, like, oh, my behaviors hurt people and I see your wounds and I don't want to continue hurting them. So let me work on some of that stuff so that we can have a relationship. We can have a better life. We can um, work through this together. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And just to tag on to that, one of the things that addicts in general, whether they're sex addicts or some other kind of addict, need to do if they want to have healthy relationships moving forward is move from a one-person system to a two-person system. One person is I, me, my. And the two-person system is us and our. Sometimes I watch Home and Garden TV and I watch the couples buying a house. And about half the time, it's usually the man, my money, my kids, my wife, and about half the time, the guy's like, we and our. And you can see these relationships and you can tell which ones are happy and which ones aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Are we a team or is it all about me? And sometimes it's the woman who's all about me, but usually it's the man because he's got the purse strings in most of these. Um, and it, it's so noticeable to me. Um, you know, all about me, all about me, all about me. Um, Troy, a lot of addicts now are identifying as sex, love, and validation addicts. Um, they're addicted to validation. Can you talk a little bit about this chase for, I call it faux validation, because, a prostitute is really not validating me. She's validating my, however much money I just handed her or
Right.
him. But this chase for validation, where does it fall onto, the attachment wounds and the shadows?
So we look at, if you look at the opposite of what each of these wounds are, it gives us a clue of what our needs might be. So the opposite of loss typically is gain, but when we're dealing with attachment, that's different, right? Because I can't dig up my grandma and have her hang out with me. That's not going to work. So the opposite of loss is often assurance, this sense of assurance, comfort, like it's going to be okay. Life is going to go forward. Um, uh, I'm going to miss grandma and I miss the memories, but it's going to be all right. And I can carry her in my heart and people give me hugs and that kind of stuff. The opposite of neglect is attention. So somebody's paying attention to me, they're noticing me, they're recognizing me, and they're listening to me. That's really nice. The opposite of rejection is acceptance. You accept me, you like me, you think that I'm wonderful. The opposite of abandonment is presence. You're there, you're holding space, you're not leaving, you're not checking out, you're actually around, and I can trust that you're going to stick around. The opposite of betrayal is trust. That you're going to tell me the truth. You're going to be there for me. You're going to be honest. And then the opposite of abuse is compassion and a respect for boundaries. So there's a lot of ways that we try to get these met in counterfeit ways, right? So when you're a love addict, what you learned is that, okay, so you get on a site or you're flirting with somebody and they're doing all of this, right? But
Except
it's
except maybe being honest.
right, right. Um, but they're but it's not real, or um, they may be sincere, but you're not being sincere, right? But it's a counterfeit way, and then afterwards you feel worse because you've betrayed lots of things. But in that moment, I'm getting assurance they like me. They're laughing at my jokes. They're paying attention to me. They're accepting me. They're there. They're kind, and so that feels really good. But what I'm doing is going against my value system, And so what I end up doing in that moment is I end up losing myself, neglecting myself, rejecting myself and my values, abandoning myself and my values, betraying myself and my values, and maybe even abusing myself. And so I've just opened up all of those wounds even further, which then gives space for shame to really march in and say, what, you piece of crap, you horrible human, and all of that. And so then with that shame and feeling so down on myself, I then go right back to my drug of choice, which, flirting with people to try and get it met. And that becomes the addictive cycle, right? Um, it's, it's the same pattern, different behavior, but it keeps feeding on itself because I keep wounding myself rather than actually finding a way to get those needs met in a healthy way.
And this is the cycle of addiction. The triggers are loss and neglect and rejection and all these things. And then I slide into like sexual fantasy. Usually I'm not even aware I'm doing it, but I start getting a dopamine adrenaline rush right then. I start getting high then. And then, I start taking steps toward acting out. Yeah. Pain, preoccupation, ritual, acting out, more pain. I act out, the bubble that I'm in pops. I'm back in the real world with all of the attachment wounds I was feeling before and the shame. Um, Plus a fresh heap and help and a shame because I just did it again and I swore I wouldn't. Um, and I can remember, wanting to boil myself afterward because I felt so slimy and gross and horrible on top of, all the stress and anxiety and whatever I was feeling that kicked me off in the first place. And I would take these screaming, steaming hot showers for like,
Mm,
I mean, burning myself almost,
mm,
trying to get clean. Um, and, unfortunately, I wasn't showering my brain or my heart. It
if only
was,
that was possible.
yeah. So, well, it is possible, but you'd have to be dead for it. So
I
maybe
guess.
not. Yeah. I watched a zombie movie yesterday. Sorry, I apologize.
That's pretty
Uh,
funny.
but yeah, I mean, this is the cycle of addiction: is pain, escape. But unfortunately, the escape creates more pain,
Yeah.
and we just spin and spin and spin, and in the process, we confirm all of our attachment wounds, and we confirm the judge and the politician and the martyr and the all of our shadows. We confirm them as well.
Yeah. And that, so I tell people, you're not actually addicted to love, you're actually addicted to the shame that comes next, because you actually don't believe that you are worthy of love and belonging. And so you keep behaving in a way to prove it to yourself over and over and over.
Right.
And so if you could learn how to actually believe that you're enough in here without having other people tell you, if you could actually learn to believe that, your need to go get it externally would shrink significantly.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about self-esteem versus external esteem, and how that plays into an addict and a betrayed partner?
Yeah. So when um, we are all worthy of love and belonging, but oftentimes we don't believe it. And that comes from shame, right? That shame that says I'm unworthy of love and belonging because I have these problems. So when we're wanting to help somebody heal, I really want them to be able to tap into that light inside of them. Part of where shame comes from is shame is externalized messages that we've internalized. So we get that from our parents, we get that from the media, we get that from TV shows, we get that from all around us that says that this is the way that we're supposed to be. And the challenge with that is if I act that way, people give me praise. They People like say, hey, you're amazing, you look awesome, you're all those things, and that feels so good. And that feels amazing, but it doesn't last very long, especially if I don't believe it. So if inside I don't think that I'm worthy of that, and you're giving me compliments, I might be saying thank you on the outside, and in this inside, I'm like, you're full of crap. Like you don't really know me, and I'm pushing that away. So I keep blocking that, like, like no compliments here, even if you can't see that on the outside. Um, so that's the intoxication though of having that from the outside, because it feels so good here inside, but it doesn't last because I don't believe it. So I talk to people a lot about the love and belonging tank, and we all have one inside. And how full is your love and belonging tank? And what does your tank look like? Does that have a lot of holes? Is it rusted on the bottom? Like, or is it intact? What's the quality of the tank? And so I might need to do some work on my tank so that I can fill it up myself. I can reach to my higher power and have higher power fill it up. And yeah, it's nice when other people fill it in too, but it can't be the only source. Um, I need to be able to believe that for me. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. Sometimes I talk about the hole in the soul,
Yeah.
and I was trying to fill it with alcohol and drugs and porn and prostitutes and, one night
Mm.
stands. You know, and the problem is the hole was a leaky bucket. It was all of my attachment wounds had poked holes in this bucket. So it didn't matter what I poured into it, it was draining out the bottom. It was always empty. There was always this hole. And, again, until we repair the wounds, the attachment wounds, the bucket's going to leak.
Yeah.
You know, and attachment wounds, this external versus internal validation, of course, immediately went to my childhood. I was a swimmer and I was really good. Um, and, I would win a race by, a length and a half or something. I'd get out of the pool and my mother would tell me, you didn't break the record. What am I supposed to tell my friends?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, now that's a narcissistic mother, but it, it's one of those things where I couldn't get self-esteem from being good, and I couldn't get external esteem from being good because, one of my messages that I learned from childhood was you're better than everyone else, but you'll never be good enough.
Mm.
Um, and that's a weird one,
It is weird. Yeah.
but it's, I'm pouring things into the bucket and they're just going right out the bottom.
Right.
Um, and there's just not enough sex and drugs and porn in the world to make me feel better for more than a few fleeting moments.
Mhm.
And that's why we end up at this cycle of addiction. We're back at despair all over again.
Right.
Um, but it starts early. And until we go back and repair these wounds, we can't. I mean, you're so right. It's like we have to repair these wounds or we're going to keep doing it, you know?
But we
So,
have to understand, we have to develop shame resilience, because
yeah,
shame started, like, the judge usually shows up in our lives when we're about 8 years old, because we begin to learn, if I do good things, I get a gold star, I get a thumbs up. So if I need to keep doing more good things in order to get that recognition, and that works when we're 5 and 6 and 8, but when we're 10 and 12, that doesn't work so well.
right,
But the judge has now been born, and like, you got to be perfect in order to do that. And then you have that experience where you did a good job and it still wasn't good enough, right? So the shame based message is, you're great but not great enough. And
yeah,
that then drives, well, where can I go get the validation that I'm good enough?
right. And I'm not alone with that, I'll never be good enough. I mean, most addicts have some version of that.
Right.
Is the impotent one the same as the victim? That's in our Q&A.
So when I was coming up with the names, I specifically chose not to use the victim,
Yeah.
because I work with victims of
Mhm.
like sexual assault and those kind of things. And so I didn't really want to use it as a shame thing. Um, to me, um, the impotent one has victimy energy, like poor me, like it's like awful. but the impotent one isn't a victim. And a victim is somebody who had something bad happen to them. If they want to continue to use that to identify themselves, that's their prerogative. But a lot of the victims I
Yeah.
work with, they changed their identity. I'm a survivor. So they change that identity. But there's victim behavior and there's victim energy, and the impotent one definitely has that.
Yeah. AA, there's a joke. Oh, poor me, poor me. Somebody pour me a cocktail. Because this is what happens when we're in the poor me stage.
Yeah,
And when I teach addicts about denial, one of the ways we engage in denial is we go into victim mode.
yeah.
Nobody likes me, everybody hates me. Guess I'll go look at porn. It's yeah, but I love that you don't use that word because there's a connotation to victim that's not there with impotent one or survivor.
Yeah.
Um, Hi, I'm the betrayed. We've been separated for 2 years. However, we are on a family holiday together with our 3 kids. I'm finding it really hard. On the one side, I want this family feeling. On the other side, I know he's in active addiction, and it's so painful that he chooses addiction over us. How do I get past this holiday without being crushed all day? Any advice? That's a tough one.
Hmm. My heart hurts with you.
Yeah.
So you're there with the kids. Um, and so there's a couple of things that I would like be curious about. So what's the intent of the family vacation? So doing this, creating memories for the kids. I mean, grant that they're not going to be great memories for you, but what are the memories for the kids? We're doing this. I don't know if it's like everybody and aunts and uncles and everybody's there, but what is the intent of going on this vacation? And if you can continue to circle back to that. Well, we're wanting to have we want to do something with the kids. I want to be able to spend time with my kids and do that. Um, and having that be the energy and the gratitude that we're able to do that. Um, I don't know how the kids are with their the other parent. Um, the, the, um, but being able to notice that they're able to spend some time there too. But reminding yourself, okay, I don't know how long your vacation is, but I can do this for 5 days. I can endure this for 5 days. I have a list of people that I can reach out to and text while I'm there. So I have some support. Like when things get really tough, I know that I can text somebody and reach out and say, hey, I can't call because I'm with my kids and we're all in the same hotel room, but I just want to know you're there. And so knowing that there's somebody you can reach out to, um, focusing on what you want to get out of this vacation with your kids and how that can be a great experience for you. And also you can have the conversation with your partner and say, hey, uh, you we can't be having any acting out behaviors while we're together. Like don't blow this vacation up even more than it's already hard. Like um, can you keep it together for the time that we're here? Because I need that and the kids need that. Um, So those are my thoughts. What are yours, Scott?
Yeah. Again, boundaries. You know, I need you to put the phone away. I need you to turn it off while we're, on vacation. You know, if you're going to be acting out, take a walk by yourself from 8 to 9 and play on your phone. I mean, we're separated, whatever. But we're on a family vacation and you need to be here with your family. Uh, Sorry. And one of the things that addicts, when they finally choose to get sober, they regret is things like the vacations where they weren't fully present, um, and their family knew it. The kids know it. The wife knows it, and you can never get those moments back. And maybe you can remind him, like, look, I mean, How do you want your kids to remember you? As a guy who had his face buried in the phone and didn't pay attention to them or their mom while they were all on vacation together? Or do you want them to have good memories of their dad? Because this stuff doesn't go away. Um, and when kids get ignored, by the way, kids are we're born narcissists. It's all about us. We get hopefully less narcissistic as we get older. We start to realize that other people matter, other people have feelings, but young kids in particular, why isn't daddy paying attention to me? I must have done something wrong. What did what did I do? Why doesn't daddy love me anymore? Or mommy or whatever. I don't mean to be sexist, but um, and we're creating the next generation of addicts. I mean, these are attachment wounds that they will
Yeah.
carry with them until they meet Troy and start working on them. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's all of our questions. Troy, is there anything you want to add or anything you want to take us out with?
So I know that Seeking Integrity has the Sila Alumni Retreat coming up. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. This is for Seeking Integrity residential alumni. We have a retreat coming up in a couple of weeks. Troy is going to be there. Yay! Teaching attachment wounds. I'll be there. Vince, who's one of our primary therapists, and Jason, our alumni and primary therapist guy. He probably won't appreciate me calling him, the alumni guy. We're all going to be there. Dr. Rob's going to make an appearance. It's 2-day retreat in LA, in the LA area, a beautiful place. We're excited about it. So yeah, if you're a Sila alum and you're interested, let us know. And even if you're not a Sila alum and you're interested, let us know, because if we have some open spaces, we may open it up. We're not sure yet. Last time we had no open spaces, so it wasn't a question, but right now we have a few open spaces. So if you're interested, let us know. Question, can we hear this presentation online? Yes, I will get it posted later today. You can find it you can go to YouTube and the Seeking Integrity channel on YouTube. So, we just had a question come in. Troy, do you have time or no?
I do.
Okay. Betrayed partner, Discovery Day 2 years and a week ago. I've been patiently waiting on his work with his CSAT on disclosure. I've been fighting the hypervigilance to snoop and just find out. I know this can trigger me, doesn't give me good info, and causes conflicts a lot of times. The longer I have to wait, the more I want to snoop. I feel like this is sand falling through my fingers. Any suggestions? Great question.
So I'm going to use gender, not because I'm rude, but it's just easier. So one of the things that I have the guys do when they're working on a disclosure is they tell their partner the date that they can expect it to be done.
Yeah.
So I don't know if your partner has done that yet, but not having a date does lead to that sense of nebulousness of I don't know, and so then you become more and more triggered. So asking, when is this going to happen? Can you give me a deadline? Like, give me a time frame so that I know what this is happening.
Right.
Reach out to the support with the other betrayed partners and saying, I'm getting that itchy feeling. Help me know that that's not a good idea. Because you're wanting your life to start again, really.
Right.
And this is holding you back. So being able to really say, well, I need to know by when I can expect this. So can you please help me?
Yeah, and 2 years and a week is a long time to wait on a full disclosure. Usually at about 6 months of hard work in recovery by the addict is about the time disclosure should happen. So yeah, you've been incredibly patient. I'd be feeling itchy too. Just want to validate. Press for a date. Troy's 100% right. Push for a date. Um, so thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Troy, for giving your time so freely and willingly. That's an amazing thing that you do. I'm really glad I got to be here with you.
I got to hang out with Scott. You're amazing.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. All right.
Bye.
Bye. Or next month with Troy.
Yeah. Yeah. Bye.